This is the video for week 4 of the 5 to 10k program, the coaching notes. This week we up our distance to 7 kilometers, but the going is basically flat. We want to do that because at the same time as extending the distance a little bit, we're going to be starting to give you a bit of experience of running a little bit faster, but nothing to get worried about. Everybody has managed it in the past, and I'm sure you'll manage it as well. Okay, so going through the coaching notes, we started off with a video by Sage Canaday all about running economy, and in fact that's what the focus of this week is. It's about running economy, which you could think of in terms of running efficiency. If you imagine that you have a big heavy car, you know, maybe a Rolls Royce, God forbid. It's got a big engine, and it's going to use a lot more fuel to propel the weight than you would if your car was a Mini or something, a small family car. That's what running economy is about. That the more energy you use to cover a certain distance, in the case of the Rolls Royce and Mini, the miles for every gallon of petrol, the more economical it is. In terms of running, it's much the same. We want to be able to run further or faster for no extra effort, really. That's one of the principal objectives of the 5 to 10k program. Yes, we want you to go further, but we want you to go further without actually feeling as though you're doing any extra hard work, that the work is any harder. That's how I should have put it. Okay, so going back to the car analogy, that Rolls Royce, you could drive it absolutely flat out, foot to the floor, accelerate hard, you know, brake hard when you come to a bend and so on, or you could just put it into glide mode and cruise along at 30 miles an hour, watching the world go by, having a nice time in the luxurious surroundings. So the first way, you're going to use even more petrol, a whole bucket load of it. The second way, you'll probably get as many miles to the gallon as it's possible to get in a big heavy car. Same goes for the Mini. If you drive it like you're a rally driver, you won't get as many miles to the gallon as you would if you're just pottering around the town. So, translating that into running, if you're running really fast, you'll use your energy a lot quicker than if you're just jogging along. So that's kind of the essence of running economy. What is efficient? What is economical? How can we run without getting tired as quickly? Okay, the way that our economy is affected is a thing called running form, and Sage explains a bit more about this. Essentially, running form is how you hold yourself. I have terrible running form, even after 12 years or more of trying to, you know, hold myself upright, keep my head up and keep my airway open, you know, kicking my heels, all these kind of things, trying to run efficiently. But you know, I'm set in my ways and I find it really difficult. Now and again I'll be running and suddenly I'll think, oh, you know, tuck your bum in. And that itself is, I think, one of the biggest lessons. Tuck your bottom in. By tucking your bottom in, you bring the rest of your body into alignment. And that is the way, that is effectively good running form. That's the way that you're going to run most economically. So posture is a good thing. Now, should you actually go about trying to change your posture, change the way that you swing your arms and so on, and we'll come back to that in the Science of Ultra episode. Okay, training for economy. Sage talks about this. Now, Sage has a catch line: any distance, any distance, any terrain. I can't remember exactly what it is. And in fact, he runs marathons and so on. He runs marathons and so on in city streets, but they also run 100-mile ultras through mountains. So he'll do any kind of running. What he tries to do is to say that training, and thereby your running economy, depends on the kind of running that you want to do. If you're concentrating on all-out speed, if you're just running 100 or 200 meters as fast as you can, then that's fine. You're going to be good at doing that, but it's not going to help you if you come to do a 5k, 10k, half marathon, or whatever. So your training has become specific to one particular type of running. Specificity is a big thing in coaching. If you're going to be training for a particular event, your training has to be specific to that particular event. So, do you want to run faster? Yes. Do you want to run further? Yes. Do you want to do that without requiring any extra effort? Of course you do. So what we're looking for in the 10k program is not to make you fast, not to make you a massive endurance runner doing 100-mile ultras. We're trying to find a nice balance between the two, so that if there's a day that you want to run fast, then you can. If there's a day that you want to run, say, 15 kilometers or 10 miles when you're used to doing 10Ks, then you can do that as well. The best way to improve your running efficiency and economy is simply to run more. That's a well-known feature of running coaching. That's what I learned. You run more and you'll get better, you'll become more economical. Sage also says that. He talks about if you're doing 80 miles a week, do 100 miles a week. So we're not doing that, we're maybe doing 15 to 20 miles a week. And if we can do that, that's pretty good. But if we can add an extra 5 miles on, or even an extra 5k, instead of doing 3 5k runs in a week, try doing 4. It will improve your running. And the question is, will it improve your running efficiency, your running economy? And we'll talk a bit more about that under the Science of Ultra section. But the judge is still out on that. I'm kind of mixing my metaphors there. Nobody's really sure. All we can say is that as you run longer distances, you get tired. You're less able to hold your body into that upright position, good running form. You tend to start to slouch down, your hips tend to go forward, and it just becomes less economical. Now, the longer you run, and longer in time that you do longer runs, is what I really meant, the more used to longer runs your body is, and it's able to maintain your good posture, your good running form for longer periods. So in that respect, running more, upping your miles, definitely does improve your economy. It's just that you're getting used to, or you become used to, running longer distances. You're able to hold your body up and get good airflow and so on. So that's essentially Sage Canaday's video. It's a good one. I like Sage Canaday, so have a read of that. The other main resource that you have this week is the Science of Ultra episode, and surprise, surprise, it's the Science of Running Economy, and you've got not one expert but 2 who are contributing on this. So, as Sage said, the science has shown that running on a flat track and running on mountains are 2 totally different disciplines. And you can build up a level of economy that supports a wide range of runs, which is what we're trying to do in the programme. But if you want to excel in any particular form of running, you really need to focus on that to the exclusion of everything else. An interesting snippet from Science of Ultra: just because you're an economical runner doesn't mean to say you're the best runner. I guess going back to the car analogy, if you're in a Fiat 500, let's say tiny little engine, and you want to outrun an E-type Jaguar from the traffic lights, you'll be going as hard as you can, and the car will still be economical because it's a small engine, but you'll never be as fast as the E-type Jaguar. So you won't necessarily be the best runner, even if you are the most economical one. Running hills, does that improve your economy? Well, yes, it does. The research shows that I've mentioned a few times already in the programme that the mediocrity of the middle is the term that coaches use. If you're plodding along at what I call your cruising pace, it's a nice comfortable pace, you're enjoying the run, it's no real effort, but you're not hanging about, then you're not provoking your body and your body won't adapt. If you run slowly, so low heart rate training, then your body will respond to that, and your cardiovascular system will improve and help you increase your cruising pace. I've done that myself, and it definitely works. It's definitely counterintuitive. Running slowly, how does that help me run faster? But it does. The other way to provoke your body is to run quite hard, and your body is going to react to your increased heart rate, your increased demand for oxygen, and so on, and it does down at the cellular level. It adapts so that you can absorb more oxygen, get it to the muscles, get your ATP kind of process going, and get your muscles working. So short, sharp hills has been definitely shown to give better results than running up a gradual uphill that might go on for half a mile. Yes, you will get a benefit, but that's tending more towards the mediocrity of the middle. You want to do short hills and do them really hard, and it's hard work, no getting away from it, but it's that hard work that will force your body to adapt. It says, oh wow, we're doing something I haven't done before, and it'll start to adapt. If you remember, in a previous week we talked about high intensity interval training, or HIIT, and we talked about how that works. You don't need to do a lot of that in a week. Just 2 or 3 minutes in a week is enough to get your body to start adapting to new demands. Sage said that to improve your running economy, you need to run more. However, I did put a little caveat about that a few minutes ago. The science actually doesn't support that. There's no evidence that is actually the case. What we can say though, and this is not scientific, it's just, I was going to say stating the obvious, but all knowledge is stating the obvious once it's been pointed out to you. But running is a skill, and like any other activity, the more you do it, the more accomplished you become, the better you become at it. My wife does lace, and I couldn't, that's joining holes together with bits of thread. I couldn't do lace to save my life. My wife can rattle it out without any real effort because she's practiced it, she's done it so many times, she doesn't really have to think about it. On the other hand, she can't run, because she's never done it. But if I was to start to do lace and persevere and get over the initial hump of having to figure it all out, then yes, I would become better at it. And if my wife did start to run, then yeah, she would get better at it, so you would improve. So, what factors help us to understand how to improve? Well, here's a few things. Stay relaxed and don't force it. Your body automatically will run in a way that suits you as an individual. There is a separate episode of Science of Ultra where they talk about this in a lot of detail, and they've done lots of experiments on trying to get people to change the way that they run, to adopt what in theory is best running form. You know, this nice and upright, relaxed, shoulders back, airway open, all this kind of stuff. What they found is that it actually makes you slower because you're working against what your body wants to do. It's a bit like I said, low heart rate training forces your body to change. What we find is that people who are doing low heart rate training, it means that it's going to be less effort, and generally that's reflected in a slower pace. Okay, but the whole idea is it's nothing to do with pace, it's about the effort that you're putting in. So if you're doing low heart rate training, it should be difficult because your body wants to run at the kind of pace and effort that it's used to, what I call the cruising pace. I referred to that a few minutes ago. So if you're doing low heart rate training, it's an easier run, you would think, because it's less effort. But in actual fact, it's more difficult because your body wants to go harder, put in more effort. So it is actually harder to do low heart rate training. You're asking your body to work in ways that it doesn't want to work. And it's this working in ways it doesn't want to work that causes it to adapt. So, in the same way, when we ask people to maybe change the way they hold their arms when they're running, maybe they're running like this, and you want them to run with arms parallel to each other, it actually makes you slower. Yes, in the long run, it can improve. If you want to be an elite runner, then you want to improve your running form and change it so that you are using the ideal biomechanics. But for recreational runners or people that do, local events and so on, that are never going to want to win a race, you're going to be slower. So that's the biggest lesson from that, is don't change the way that you're running just now, unless you really want to and unless you're prepared to go through the effort of getting your body to change the way that it naturally works. Because if you're working in a way that isn't natural, then you're working against your body and you're going to be slower. If you are thinking about how can I change my body, where's the best place to work, then the research shows that it's your bottom half of your body, your lower limbs, your legs essentially. But legs, feet, ankles, knees, these are all interconnected. It's all a chain that works together, and a weakness in one place will weaken the whole chain. I guess what would the analogy be there? People talk about the weakest link in a chain, don't they? If you've got a paper, let's say a metal chain, and you replace one of the links with a paper chain, the paper is going to give out, and then there's no point in having had the metal at either side. That's maybe not the best way of explaining it. So changing the way that you use your legs is the better option if you do want to change. But I have to say that for the most part, running form focuses on the upper body, the way I said, tuck your bum in, because it makes your torso more vertical and your arms will react to that. Your airway will open up a little bit more, all sorts of ways that'll help. So personally, I'm not so sure about changing the way that your legs work. The one exception to that, I think, is a lot of runners, their legs go like a pendulum, and basically like that. And if your leg is pivoting from your hips, then your feet aren't really clearing the road very much. And like any pendulum, your leg is at the end, and it takes a lot of effort. It takes much more effort because it's the lever principle, isn't it? you're having to swing this at the end of the lever, so it's much harder work. We're thinking about running economy, so that is definitely a place that we can start to address our form. Now, people in the olden days would say this means that you have to focus on kicking your heels up. As your feet come up off the ground, you'll lift your heel up and try and not quite touch your bottom, but get it up high. And the principle behind that is if you lift your leg up, then you start to do a cycling motion. That used to be the way that people were taught to run properly. And I would say nearly all coaches still adhere to that. But there's new evidence has come out to say, well, there is a way that is even more economical. And that is, and it's easier, it's one that you can implement today without any extra training or adaptation. And instead of kicking your heels up, lift your knee. As your foot comes off the ground, you lift your knee vertically. Now the lever is between your hips and your knee, so it takes less effort, much more economical. And because you're also moving forward, when you lift your knee up, your foot comes up, but your knee carries forward, and you still get this cycling motion. The main part is when your foot hits the ground, it should be underneath your body. So your body's up here, your foot should hit the ground here. So we did talk in a previous week about point load. You want the load to go down into the ground. Your body's here, your leg is straight down, or maybe just slightly forward. You hit the ground and all your weight goes down into the ground. You run over it and away you go. So that one doesn't really take a lot of effort, and I do recommend that one. What about flexibility? Now this one is a definite gotcha, because people talk about doing strength and flexibility exercises and they spend a lot of time. I've got programs on strength and flexibility. We now call it strength and conditioning, but it's basically getting your joints flexible and so on. So you start to think, okay, so I've got to do these exercises to make myself more flexible, and that will make me a better runner. Here again, it's counterintuitive, because the research shows that it's people who have stiff muscles and tendons that have the best running economy. And essentially it's because when you're running, it's your tendons and the connective tissue act like rubber bands, and when you stretch them, you store up energy, and when you release them, it springs back like a rubber band. You stretch a rubber band, let it go, and it pings back together. And the tighter your tendons are, the more you get this reaction, the spring back, and you get free propulsion. If your tendons are soft and squishy, then you don't get as much. Now, with my coach's hat on, I would say, well, does that apply equally well to short distance, high intensity running, and also to running mountains? Or is that something specific to high intensity running? When you're running up a mountain or down a mountain, you're not really looking for that spring again. It's the endurance that you really need. And if you're doing ultra long distances, then if your muscles and tendons are tight, then yes, you're getting the propulsion, but you're also adding to the stress that you're putting onto them. And I would say, unless you're doing high intensity stuff, I would go for flexibility and enjoy the likelihood of being less likely to pick up an injury. Resistance training, yes, good one. We want to try and do some resistance training. So what's that? Well, you can lift weights. Now, weights doesn't have to be a lot. You could get a 2-litre bottle of water or fizzy drink, or a bag of sugar in each hand, and you'll carry them as you're running along, not necessarily running, as you're just walking along, even as you're going about the house. Best thing to do, I would say, is to do squats. So as part of your weekly regime, have maybe 2 or 3 times a week, build in some squats holding weights, and do, the research says, between 3 and 6 sets, each of about 3 squats. So you're only talking about 20 squats. It's not a huge amount, but at the end of that that little workout, you should feel tired. We do talk about working to the point of failure, where you just can't carry on anymore. And if you want to do that you will get the biggest bang for your buck. And the way to do that is to up the amount of weight that you're actually holding until you get to that point of failure. But do we really want to get to that point? We're recreational runners. We want to improve, but we don't necessarily want to work as hard as an elite athlete. So, bag of sugar, bottle of drink in each hand, and that should be fine. We're getting towards the end. It's quite a long Science of Ultra one, and a lot of important information, which is why this video is twice as long as the previous ones. We know that we have different types of muscle fibres. I think most people know that you've got fast twitch and slow twitch ones. Fast ones when you're sprinting, slow ones for when you're doing endurance stuff. But in reality, it's a bit of a continuum. You've got some that are a little bit more towards the fast twitch, and some that are a little bit slower. Sorry, what did I say there? Do that again. So slow twitch, you can get some that are a little bit faster twitch than slow twitch, and from the fast twitch side, you have some fibres which are a little bit slower side than full fast twitch, and you get some that are halfway. It's a seamless continuum between the slow and the fast, just a straight line, more or less, I would say. So these are spread all over your body, and the type of fibre, the characteristics of fibre is dependent upon the work that you ask the fibres to do. So that implies that if you're asking fibres to do not very much work, then they would be type 1. If you're asking them to do a lot of work, they would be type 2. And that's true. So the question is, if you have a type 2 fibre, can you make that into type 1? And if you've got a type 1 fibre, can you transform that into type 2? And the answer in both cases is yes. But the second one, going from slow twitch to fast twitch, is very, very hard. It takes a long time, and we can forget about that. What we are interested in when we're building distance is, can we transform some fast twitch fibres into slow twitch fibres? And that is definitely going to be a benefit. Now, because that gives us more endurance. Now, are we going to be doing that within the scope of the 5 to 10k program? Unlikely that's going to happen. But if you did want to do it, then what you want to do is improving your running economy and endurance. Sorry, that's right. So the longer runs, taking on hills but not absolutely beasting up them. Yeah, so that's I think why when we move into the next few weeks, and we're starting this week to just get an idea of up tempo, and there's various forms of tempo. Actual tempo running is a level of effort that you can sustain for 30 minutes. If you're a trained athlete, we are not trained athletes at this stage. Up tempo is your cruising pace, to use my term, plus about 20%. So if in terms of your effort you're going at 50%, then up tempo would be 60% effort, or 5 out of 10 up to a 6 out of 10, from a 6 out of 10 to just a wee bit more than a 7 out of 10, from a 7 to an 8, and so on. So we're not making a massive demand on our body, but we're asking it to do just a little bit more than is comfortable. Then our body is going to react to that. But by only adding a little bit extra stress, then it's not going to change our fibres, but it does mean that we are going to adapt, but it's more in the cardiovascular system. And we're not going to change our muscle fibre types, I don't think. Okay, so rounding up then, tips for improved running economy. So the host of the podcast asked the two scientists if you could recommend 2 things to runners that would improve their running economy, what would they be? And the first one was be consistent in your running. So don't run hard for a couple of weeks and then not run for maybe a month, then go back and do another couple of weeks, get fed up and stop running. That's not going to help you. It's not going to do any harm, but in terms of improving your running economy, you want to have a sustained workload. Use resistance training. We want to be running uphill. This is why we do hill reps in the Sunday runs. Run hard downhill as well. We haven't done that yet, but we will. Add in some weight training. We've talked about that in the last few minutes. They talk about HIIT, high intensity interval training. Do some of that, and they suggest, we've been doing strides at the end of a group session. We do little sprints to get back to the car park. They suggest doing strides. Start at a level of effort that you can maintain for 200 metres, have a little bit recovery, another 200 metres. We've been doing 50 to 100 metres. I'm just quoting them. So whatever distance it is that you can sustain just now, if it's only 50 metres, that's good. But don't just keep doing 50 metres. Go from 50, then go up to maybe 70 to 100, 100 to 150 to 200. They suggest start at 200, go to 250, 300, 400, and so on. The level of progression is entirely up to you and how well your body is adapting to let you run harder over these longer distances. The last one is thinking about, they talk in terms of an event that you would like to take part in. And so at the end of each of the 5 to 10k programs, we try to encourage people to enter a 10k race. So in the springtime, it's the Gartmorton 10k race across near Falkirk, or near Alloa, sorry. And the summer one is the Glenrothes 10k in June, and in the autumn it's the East Nuke 10k in, I think that's in October. So think about an event that you want to enter. If you don't want to enter an event, then I would say set yourself a goal and say, by such and such a date, I want to be able to run up that hill in 10 minutes, or I want to run 10k, instead of in 80 minutes, I want to run it in 70 minutes. Set yourself a goal. That's the important thing, is you have a goal, and then between now and your target date, you're training should have, each training session should have an objective. So build your training plan, work towards your goal so that you're sure you're going to get there. So they're talking about that kind of approach. You want to try and train in conditions that are similar to the ones you're going to encounter. So Gartmorn and the East Nuke 10K, both of these are more or less flat races. They're good for a beginner. The Glenrothes 10K, most of it's flat, but it's got two big hills about halfway through for about 3 kilometres. It's basically uphill with a little bit downhill in between. So what are the characteristics of the event or the challenge that you'd like to accomplish? Try to match the elevation profile. How much are you going to climb, or is it going to be totally flat? Is it going to be really hot? I recall going to the Brighton Marathon one year, and it was something like 16 degrees at home here in Scotland. I went down to Brighton the night before, and it was 22 degrees. And for people in the south of England, 22 degrees isn't all that hot. But for me, 6 degrees was a huge change. However, on the day, the temperature went up even higher. There was no cloud cover, the sun was hitting the runners straight on, and they would be hitting about 30 degrees, I would say. The ambient that day was, I think, 24 or 25, but because the sun is hitting you, it's actually much warmer, because ambient temperature is the temperature in the shade. So I've kind of rambled a little bit there, but yeah, find what the climate is going to be like. Is it an area of high humidity, because that makes things harder as well. I mentioned about sunshine. As I'm recording this, it's quite dull, but the last few days it's been really, really sunny here, and you can really feel the difference. And when we were having a group session, people were struggling a little bit, where normally they would be able to cope perfectly well with it. So how do you model that? It's not really possible, is it? I suppose you can try your best. You could, if you want, if you're really serious, you could go to the gym, jump on a treadmill and do an uphill run, wearing 3 jumpers and 2 raincoats, and that would certainly get your temperature up. But in reality, nobody really does that. Where I would say you can apply that principle is if you're going to be doing an event where the climate is known to be different from your own. For example, if I was going back to Brighton, I know it's going to be a lot hotter than it is at home. So instead of going there the day before the event, we want to go there, I would say at least 2 days before, so that you have a chance to acclimatise. Okay, so there we go. That is your coaching notes for week 4. It's been quite a long one, but really I can't emphasise how much running economy is the biggest thing in this programme. If you don't improve your economy, you won't be running any further, you won't be running any faster. You'll just be staying where you were. So let's improve our economy, let's listen to the science, let's try and put that into practice. Okay, enjoy week 4.